My guest today's name is AMENA Brown. She's a speaker, an author, a poet, and the author of this great new book, How to Fix a Broken Record. Thoughts on vinyl records, awkward relationships, and learning to be myself. Thanks for being with us today, AMENA.
I'm so happy to be here with you.
Tell me about the genesis of this book. Why write this book?
Well, I was learning a lot of lessons in my early 30s, and the thread seems to be some recurring messages. And among a lot of people that I talk to, and in particular women that I talk to, that seem to be this phase of life that you're realizing, like, I have some things I've learned in different other times of life that are not helping me now. And so I wanted to explore, what are those messages? What are they? Why are they broken? And how can God heal where those broken places are?
And I love the journey of your book because it reminds us that identity comes from what we hear from people, our experiences, and doesn't definitely mean who we are, but it's those things that we've gone through in our lives that kind of craft how we see ourselves. So how has your perspective of yourself changed over the years?
Well, I need to talk to my therapist and see what she would say about how much it's changing. But, well, I will say I think a part of it is accepting who I am in all. And that those are going to be some really great things and some really beautiful things. And there's going to be some weaknesses and some strengths. And I think in a way I spent a lot of time sort of trying to be perfect and trying to sort of accept whatever part of that image I could present. And now just to be like, this is who I am as a woman, all of me. God loves all of who I am. God is looking at me and knows everything. God knows what my flaws are. God knows these beautiful things about me. If God can love me, I can also love myself, and maybe hopefully be able to give that grace to other people too, right?
So I was telling you off camera that as I read this book, I was like, I feel like you're telling part of my childhood story. You talked about wearing big glasses growing up, having big feet like myself. I also struggled with these issues. Tell us about some of this that you had to journey through as you're finding yourself and just discovering who you are in this world.
It was interesting to me, sort of, you're in your grown woman journey, but your grown woman journey is like reflective of these experiences you had as a young girl. So in me thinking about, having long feet, long, narrow feet, afraid of heels for so long, and coming to this point as a woman of going, oh, I don't have to live by that narrative that these feet are too long to wear whatever shoe, I want to wear. So it's been this really fun journey of sort of undoing the wrong messages maybe that you embraced, as a junior high student or in high school, and now as an adult going, no, I can be as tall as I want, my hips can be as round as they want, I can be who I am, take up as much space as I'd like.
There's freedom in that, isn't there? And I think that's something that as women and women of color and just women in general, we struggle with for a very long time, is just being satisfied with who we are. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a lot of things. I think it's just, unfortunately, our humanity. It's just the imperfection of us being human beings. I think a part of it is society and is some of the structures and systems, the sin that a lot of our society was built on, that is sending us these constant messages that say, you're not enough, you're not fill in the blank enough, whatever that is, smart enough, pretty enough, tall enough, short enough, whatever that is. So a part of why I love Jesus and why I love the truth of who Jesus is that we get a chance to see the truth of God and let that come inside of us and undo the lies, right? And really be rooted in the truth. If it weren't for Jesus in my life, I would have nothing but whatever I'm being told in these external situations. And it's that groundedness of going, I'm more than what those messages say. I have to be, you know?
Part of those messages, especially I think in the church culture, is that singleness can sometimes be seen as like almost well, not a sin, but it's seen as like, what's wrong with you? Like, why don't you have a life partner yet? And thank you for just being honest about your journey of being single. Tell me about some of the lessons you learned in that process of discovering who you are in the church, being single, and having to deal with all of these assumptions that are placed.
Yeah, I grew up in church, and I grew up in a church where we were not encouraged to date. And I understand in some ways why, right?
Yeah.
That there were some, adults in our community who were like, please save yourselves from this, you're 15. Well, you get to be 25 though, and you realize, oh, I've grown up in church all this time. I don't have the skills to sit down across the table from someone I find attractive. I don't have the tools. I have a list of don'ts, basically.
Yeah.
I don't have a list of do's, what I'm supposed to do. So I think a part of why that was really important to me to share is because I wanted to talk about it, because nobody talked to me about it. And then I got into my 20s and 30s and I was like, rah, 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 So I think it's important to be able to explore different phases of life, to understand that marriage or motherhood or whatever those things are not achievements, right? That like whatever phase of life you find yourself in is good, is enough, that you're not in a waiting pattern waiting for like the better thing to come happen to you. And that's part of what I really wanted to communicate.
Tell us about your husband and that journey of finding love with him.
Yeah, we've been married 7 years now. We still like each other.
That's important.
So I do want to give that report back. We still like each other. And it's really interesting to me when I think back on, my time being single, and, my husband and I both had very interesting journeys that led us to therapy and different things before we got married, And I thought I had a certain age in my mind, Maggie, I was like, 27's my age.
Okay.
I was like, God, this is, hey, look at all this. Somebody needs to come share in this, And that wasn't God's timing. And I was pretty mad about it at the time. But it was at that time that I met my husband, which was years later. Like if I had had my clock at the time we met, I was like, oh God, you're late. You are way past the time I said you should do this, But it was the perfect time for both of us to be at a point where we were two people who were wanting to be committed in a relationship, wanting to pursue what life was going to look like as we both lived out our purpose, in the world. So I'm glad that it's him. It's not just for us, those people that do want to get married. It's not just to look to marriage as an institution. It's that you want the right person that's your partner, that's going to be your person to walk through life with you.
And you've talked about just infertility and struggles with having children. Again, so authentic in your book. What would be that message or lessons that God has allowed you to learn through that journey of wanting to be a mom?
I think a part of it is learning to trust where it is that God has you.
That's good.
That's a part of why I wanted to share some of these different sort of glimpses of life, is to say sometimes we have an idea in our mind, of when we think it's time, or sometimes we look at our friend group, and if we're single, everyone's getting married, or everyone's becoming a mom, and that starts to make you feel anxious, like, am I behind? Am I late? And so I think what God really wanted to show me, and I hope to encourage other people, whatever season you're in, be where you are. There's good and beauty right where you are. Don't spend all the time where you are looking for a life that may be coming for you. It may be in your future, that life that you've imagined, but don't be looking for that life so much that you've missed out on what's right in front of you.
Being present in that moment. Thank you so much, AMENA, for joining us. Again, the name of the book is How to Fix a Broken Record. Thoughts on vinyl records, awkward relationships, and learning to be myself. Stay with us. We'll be right back.